Welcome back to Wellness for the Hot Mess. I'm so excited to be back. I feel like we haven't been together for like the last couple episodes, and this is really lighting me up just to feel into like what's about to come up. How are you, Kristin? And I can't wait any longer. Introduce our guest.
I know. I'm good. So good to see you. So glad to be here tonight. I'm super excited for this episode as well. I think me a year ago, I always talk about this on the podcast. I wasn't really stepping into my spiritual space yet. I was kind of more just gung-ho fitness and wellness. So now I'm like really excited as I step into this new chapter of learning about spirituality, including things like tarot, which is what we're going to talk about tonight with our special guest. So without further ado, we do have someone amazing on the podcast tonight. So we're joined by Alexis Katsafanas, who is an intuitive tarot card reader based in New York City. When she's not reading tarot, Alexis works in digital merchandising and teaches group fitness classes with me over at Rumble. And across all of her work during her career, she's had a long-term mission that guides her, and it's how to have people feel seen, which is something that we're all for. So I'm really excited for this. So super, super excited to have Alexis on the episode today, and welcome. I know it's like a rainy, dark night over here in New York. So how are you feeling over there?
It is a rainy, dark night, and look at us, just all individual pieces of light coming together, creating the space. So happy, very necessary. Pleased to be here.
Totally. I think this was like the perfect vibe for tonight. I lit a little sage before this and kind of like cleaned my space out, sat down, and I was so excited for tonight. So I want you to kind of take over in the beginning and give us a little backstory about you, because I know you've got multiple layers to you. I know you personally, so it's easy for me to see those layers. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you got started, where you're from, where did you grow up? And then just kind of pivoting into your career. So what was your major at school? If you went to school, what were your future goals, your careers, and now where you're at?
Okay, let's get into it. I find it a helpful nugget to start and just share that I am a Scorpio Sun, a Pisces Moon, and a Virgo Rising, which I think explains the layers, the depth, the intensity, and the like 80 people in one situation that's going on.
Wait, hold on. I'm a Scorpio Sun. She's a Pisces, and I'm a Virgo Rising.
That's wild.
Look at this meeting of the minds. Not a coincidence. I live my life by of saying there are no coincidences. My favorite astrologer, her name is Alexis Katsafanas. She has that saying. It's abbreviated TANK. So this is TANK. There are no coincidences, that we are all literally part of each other. So I'm stoked for this conversation. And we love a heavy intro, just like immediately going in. I am one of those people who's always known what they wanted to do with their life. And I love that for me, because what I thought I wanted to do has evolved and grown and changed so many times to where I had no idea what I was even capable of. And I'm sitting here saying that in another year, I'm not even going to realize what I was capable of in this moment. So take that with a grain of salt. I always knew that I wanted to work in fashion. Specifically, I wanted to be a buyer for Nordstrom, everyone's favorite department store. We love the customer service. We love the brand selection. I remember being 13 years old in San Francisco on a family vacation, and my dad was the one in the family that loved shopping. And so he took us to Nordstrom, and I walked in, and the floor was shiny. Everyone was beautiful. And these women were so happy. And like, I just have never seen that many happy women together in one place. And I remember looking at my dad, and I was like, I'm going to work here. And he kind of like chuckled and was like, that's so cute. And then when I turned 16, I got a job at the mall. I worked at Nordstrom. I moved to New York City for fashion school. I went to the Fashion Institute of Technology. I studied buying and planning. My senior year of college, I called Nordstrom Corporate in Seattle, like a crazy person. And I spoke to the woman in HR, and I was like, hi, hello, how does one get a job here? And she was like, do you have the internet? Like we have a careers page. You can check that out. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll do that. So I applied for their internship. Long story short, I ended up getting the job. I moved all the way out to Seattle, Washington, other side of the country, left all my friends, left all my family. I'd never been there before. I didn't know a single person. And I show up and I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm here to do my dream job, which what I thought at the time was being a buyer for Nordstrom. And so I start my career. I work in buying, I work in planning, I moved to innovation, I moved to e-commerce. I'm learning all these things, I'm meeting all these people, I'm having all these experiences. And over time, the goal of helping people feel seen and helping people express their creativity through what they're wearing started to shift and morph a little bit as I was feeling personally unfulfilled by selling people things that they don't need. And so all of a sudden I was kind of confronted with this dream that wasn't, I wasn't living as a reality. And to find a little bit more of like a passion project within myself, I started teaching group fitness classes. And I'm teaching group fitness classes and I'm like, okay, this is feeling right. I'm also helping people feel seen, but I'm helping them feel seen through physical movement, expressing themselves through physical movement, feeling good in their bodies. And I remember asking myself if I could manifest a career where I was doing a little bit more of that, but I still wanted to work in digital merchandising. I wanted to work in digital product, building apps, creating spaces for people online. And so I think I manifested my job at Nike because I ended up moving to work for Nike on their innovation team, building a social app for Gen Z teen girls, a place where they could reconnect with sport, which tends to be so male dominant. All the athletes that typically you see marketed and promoted are male, and connect with each other. There's so many cool girls doing Nike, like taking Nike clothes and stitching them and cutting them and making them awesome. And I was like, how can we connect those girls with one another and help them feel seen and build this community? So I took on that job and I'm living my best life now because my personal and professional passions have become one. Yeah. Still teaching group fitness classes, working for Nike, and the pandemic hits. And what I love about the pandemic, which I feel like is never really talked about, is 2020 in numerology. 2020 means unexpected changes are coming and you're embarking on a new adventure. Yep. And so when everyone's like, this crazy unexpected thing happened, I'm like, nope, it quite literally told us what it was about.
Wow.
We just didn't really think to listen. And all of a sudden, I'm living in a state where I have seasonal depression 10 out of 12 months of the year. I find myself with my human that I'm living with in a 3-year relationship, day in and day out. I don't think I actually really like him that much. I think I was so busy with my full-time job and my part-time job, and I started a YouTube channel and I have so many other interests and I was just filling my time. And then he was somebody to come home to, and that was fun. And we cooked dinner and we would play house, and then I would leave again in the morning. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to leave. I need to get out. I don't know how to leave. I don't know how to leave a person. I don't know how to leave an apartment where we share everything. I don't know where to go. And I was just so confronted with an unexpected change. 2020 took me, I want to say 8 months to figure out how to exit. And I ended up just packing my stuff and moving to New York City and thinking, all right, I've been here before. I know how to do this. It's the middle of the pandemic, but I have friends. I have a support system. Like I have a starting point. And that was probably one of the most difficult and best decisions I've ever made, because that move brought me to Rumble. That move brought me to my job now at Daily Harvest. That move brought me to starting a business in tarot. Like I wholeheartedly believe there are no coincidences. I don't think any of those things would have happened or would have evolved in the same way had I not made a really difficult, yucky, shitty, uncomfortable change for myself in what I think we all agree are the hardest 2 years of our lives. Yeah. So that is a little bit of how I just got here to sit with you all today on this podcast.
Wow. I love it. Oh my gosh. So many gems in there that everybody listening can relate to. And I love how you like, obviously your change wasn't immediate. You just said it took about 8 months for you to come to the conclusion or to come to the action of leaving. And so I think it's important for our listeners to like really let that sink in, is like, it's okay to know something needs to change. And just because it doesn't happen immediate doesn't mean that you can't get your like ducks in a row to make that change. And so I just have a question about that, and then I'll pass it over to Kristin. But was there a point within that like decision, shit, I gotta go, and then to where you left, where you were like, I have to go now, or did you have to like get your things together?
Yeah, I think I'm the type of person where it's an immediate hell yes or hell no.
Mm-hmm.
And so once the hell yes turned into a hell no, I had already broken up with him and I had already disassociated myself from the situation long before I actually made the physical move. And I think it's also a helpful reminder to say that it's okay to be sad after you make the right decision.
Totally.
Like, it never was easy. It never felt good. It never was not scary and hard. I think I really gave it a solid effort, meaning I'm sure a lot of people can appreciate, like, how do you know if this really is or isn't your person? Like, how do you know if you're not just being overly picky? There's nothing wrong with this human. He's a wonderful human. It just didn't feel right. What does that mean? What's a feeling? And like, we can get into this for as little or as long as we want to, but the feeling is the feeling. Your gut is your gut. Your intuition is your intuition. So you can fight it. I think I fought it a little bit. You know, I think I was lengthening it. I'm like, let me try this. Let me try that. We'll have these conversations. We'll meet with these people. We'll take a trip. And at the end of the day, my spirit is like, Alexis, it's just, when are you going to listen to yourself?
Yeah.
And January 1st, 2021, I woke up and I said, all right, I'm done. Like, not listening to myself. This is the moment.
Yeah. We were having a conversation before we hopped on about how I think tarot and how I've used it in my life. It's almost helped me strengthen my relationship with my intuition. And that is something that everybody needs, right? If tarot can be this bridge, or these readings can be a bridge for people to be like, oh shit, I thought that yesterday, and now you're bringing this up to me. Okay, I trust myself. So that's really cool that like this whole shift happened in your life that began your process of strengthening your intuition and then in turn other people's.
Yes. And I'm happy you brought that up, because during these couple years where I'm starting to feel like something's not right, I'm starting to feel like maybe this isn't my person, my place, I would get my cards read in Seattle by an incredible woman in Pike Place Market. It's called Christopher's Lamp. Highly, highly recommend her. Darlene, I miss you. I love you dearly. And every time I went, I would get the same 3 cards.
No.
The 3 of Swords, the 10 of Swords, and the Death card. And she's like, something in your life needs to die to make room for something else. You need to move past whatever you're grieving. It's done. It's dead. It's over. Move on and let the weight go, because you're stuck. You're literally stuck, like stabbed in the back, face down, grieving over this decision that you're not making, holding yourself back. Every single time I would get those cards. And I remember I would call my mom and I'm like, when am I just not getting these cards? And she's like, when you make the change, you know, like
totally.
And I would always see the same numbers. I was always seeing 555, which means change. Like the signs from spirit could not have been more obvious. I think the freaky thing and the scary thing is about tarot is that it's like holding up a mirror to your life. And so you're confronted with these things that are calling you out. Like, something's not right. Something needs more attention. Something needs more love. Stop your bullshit. It's time. And like, that can be so triggering for a lot of people, you know, we're afraid.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us about your journey in tarot. When was the first time you picked up a deck? And if you could just kind of explain a little bit about what a typical reading is for someone who has no idea what tarot is. I think we have a lot of 50-50 listeners, a lot of listeners that are in it strictly for the wellness tips. They're not really into the woo-woo stuff. And then we have the other side that really love this stuff. So if you can give us like a little beginner's guide to tarot and then how you kind of fell into it.
Yes. Okay. So tarot is a spiritual practice that uses a deck of 78 cards, and it's really to gain insight into past, present, and future. And the word tarot actually originated from Italian tarocchi, and that origin dates back to 14th century. If you think about Italy, cities like Florence and Venice, where wealthy people would use tarot as a card game. It was like foolish, it was for fun. Tarot decks for readings didn't really become popular until the 18th century. And the most well-known deck today is called the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And that was created in 1909. So if you're looking at this deck of 78 cards, it's used for introspection. You're probably like, all right, what does that mean? The deck is broken out into major arcana and minor arcana. Arcana means knowledge. So we're talking about big major knowledge and smaller knowledge. Major arcana are like massive spiritual lessons that are meant to be learned in your lifetime. Like regardless of what you believe, how long you're here on earth, what happens after, you're meant to learn these lessons. Minor arcana are really earthly matters, like experiences that take place in your everyday life, situational things. I have been interested in tarot ever since I can remember. And it's funny because it's not actually until I started my own business that I discovered that tarot's been in my blood. My grandma, my mom's mom, who I never got to meet, used to get her tarot cards read in Pittsburgh downtown when my mom and her sisters were children. And I had no idea that that was a thing. But I do remember my mom going to get her cards read when she would have girls' night with her friend Betsy. Yeah. And I never really thought about that. I think for me, like, this is such a Scorpio thing. So Lexi, you'll appreciate. Yeah. I have literally always felt like I'm just made out of a different substance than other human beings. Like, I feel so misunderstood. I've always felt different. I felt like nobody gets me. I'm never going to meet anyone that gets me. I'm destined to be alone. Like, I will sit in the darkness and own it because that's why I've been created. And like, I will own that badge. Yeah. And I think when you personally feel so misunderstood by everyone around you, you become really curious on how you can better understand yourself. And you take solace in the things that other people misunderstand. So there are so many myths and misunderstandings about tarot. So I'm like, all right, let me figure that out. And then through that process, I realized, oh my gosh, like, I can learn so much about myself from this thing that, again, maybe people aren't curious enough to learn about, or maybe people are afraid. And I think it's just like chuckling because even I'm sure we all have co-star, like my co-star messages are so heavy. Like today it was, you're allowed to grieve for things that are only important to you and no one else. And I'm like, thank you for the reminder. You know what I mean? Just like so intense all the time. And it's slightly exhausting, but I'm also here for it.
Oh, cool. I love what you said about people not wanting to know, or sometimes even we don't want to know what's behind door one or whatever. Right. I was just having this conversation with a client about exploration. And a lot of the work I do with clients is like just exploring yourself, exploring what this emotion feels like, being with it for a little bit without the attachment to the action that needs to take place after experiencing the emotion. Right. I'm like the picture that's coming into my mind is, it's like, we don't want to go through our partner's phone, or back in the day, right? Because we don't want to see what we know is there, right? Because we don't then want to have to take that action. But I think there's something really strong in just exploring yourself, getting to know what the intuition is telling you, getting to know how it feels. That way, when you are ready to take the action, you can take it fucking with no questions. And I think it's like, you're supposed to be doing what you're doing. Like, I can feel it and I can see it in you. But I was going to ask you, before you mentioned your mom, I was going to say, like, did your mom give you any guidance around like you should be doing that, or I don't know if you should explore tarot? What was her relationship with her daughter deciding to explore tarot?
Yeah, she didn't. We never talked about it.
Oh, wow.
And I think also sometimes you're afraid to let people in on the tools that you have in your belt and the things that you're interested in, because you don't want them to be perceived negatively and then make you feel guilty or make you feel like, I don't want to explore this. So for many years, like probably 8 or 9 years, I would just go get my cards read and I wouldn't tell anyone, or I would buy books on numerology and astrology and tarot, and I would sit in my apartment, or I would be in school and I would be reading them and watch YouTube videos, and no one had any idea. And then slowly I found one friend who was interested, and we always say like witchy things, like, let's go have a witchy day, which now I find hysterical, because it's just another day of being curious about your life, but it's like, why does it have to have a label? Why did I feel like it had to have a label? Why did the label have a negative connotation? Like, what does witch even mean? And so it's taken me so many years to even start a business or share this with the world. Or, I mean, I think my mom was surprised. She's like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. I had no idea.
Wow.
And again, it's like these people who you are close to and you love dearly, like, don't know everything about you.
Totally.
And partially it's because you don't let them know everything about you. And it's partially because you're not sure if they're ready or open or willing to understand.
It's like you're protecting that relationship with that thing because it changed your life in so many ways. And it's like, do I want to introduce this to the world? Do I want to start making money by doing the thing that I absolutely fucking love? And the Scorpio answer is yes, I fucking do.
And it's like, I'm going to push you in that direction, and you're going to fall flat on your face over and over and over again until you finally just stand up and say, all right, I'm going to do it.
Totally.
But I think it's still tricky, because when I share my love of tarot with others, the first reaction I always get is, oh my gosh, I've always been too scared. I don't want to know if something bad's going to happen. And I think it is why I've been quiet for such a long time, because as much as I love combating misconceptions about tarot, it's the devil's work, it's for witches, it's all fake, it's a money scheme. It's also exhausting, especially when it's something that has been a guiding light of my life that I believe so intensely and so insanely in. It's tough to feel like you have to convince people that like this is a real thing that could benefit them. But on the flip side, if you don't, you're not opening the door for someone else's journey to understand themselves. And that's not fair, And if I really am here to make people feel seen and understood and good and understand themselves and be curious about their life, then I have to do the hard work.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate you kind of diving into a little bit of your journey too. And I know as humans, all we really crave a lot of the time is validation. And all of us work through that of not needing validation of others. But I think this was so important for so many people to hear that you had a passion that you had kept hidden for a decent amount of time. I think now, especially in the age of social media, this person has a business, this person has a passion, this person's showing off. And we feel like we need to force something upon ourselves and like force a passion or force something that we have to like prove to others. So for those listening out there, myself included, I have things that I do on a daily basis, or I know people that have small things a part of their life that they haven't really brought to the surface to share yet. And I know at times we almost feel forced or pressured to have to let people into these things we're so passionate about, because we think that's what makes us different and unique and creative. So I really appreciate you talking about how you kept this something for yourself for 8 years. I think that's really special. And I think that's why your journey has flowed the way it has and why you have so many layers to yourself. And I really also appreciate you bringing up the topic of how tarot can be somewhat of like a witchy concept. I think this is going to be new to a lot of people as well, because we have some listeners who maybe have never heard of tarot. And if they come out of this episode wanting to learn more about it, they may read on the internet or at sources that there are some common myths and misconceptions about it. So can you kind of debunk those myths for us quickly now and just kind of get it out there? Because I know the internet is going to be a source of some people looking up what tarot is, and it may lead them down a direction of like, oh, I don't want to get into this now. I don't want to get my cards read.
Yes. And I would love if we could normalize being allowed to be interested in whatever we are interested in and not having to label things. Like if I see one more meme of a guy that's like, if she asks for your birth time,
Yeah,
run,
totally.
like I'm over it.
Yeah, totally. Good point.
If it's tarot, if it's astrology, if it's numerology, if that's what makes your chick feel like herself and feel connected to this earth and the humans around her and the spirits around her, then like give her the birth time and
Totally.
what she has to say about it. With that being said, I think tarot, I'm thinking about when I went to Salem, Massachusetts last year, and I did the witch walk, and I was just like, oh my gosh, humans have been so afraid of the unknown for literally ever. Tarot is exactly that. People think that tarot predicts their future. They think that they will pull a card and it's the death card and it means that they are literally going to die. They think that all tarot readers are psychics. They think that there are bad cards and there are good cards. Tarot in and of itself is an intuitive tool. You know, it's practicing mindfulness. It's building intuitive capacity. It's deepening your trust with your inner wisdom. It's very much a mirror to what's going on in our life. So, you know, because we're afraid of what we don't know, we're afraid of uncertainty and potential disappointment, we're afraid of the tarot. It cannot predict your future, meaning it's not going to tell you what's happening tomorrow exactly, or when you're meeting your soulmate and what they look like and what their name is. I think what is interesting about tarot is that because it's a mirror, it's reflecting what's going on in your current moment. So it likely is giving you some solace of like, okay, I've been feeling kind of off. I'm seeing this card, it's tracking. Then there are intuitive practices. If you pull a couple more cards, it depends on what the spread is, to say, here's what you might want to consider doing about it. Here's how you might want to consider approaching the subject with another person. I think we all need a little bit of guidance, and the best guidance is from yourself. And a lot of times your subconscious, and tarot is a way to tap into that. It gets interesting when you think about people who are interested in the unknown, are curious about life, curious about spirit, curious about divinity. Many of those people tend to gravitate towards tarot, meaning a lot of people who have psychic ability likely practice tarot. You know, a majority of the tarot readers that I know personally are Scorpios. Scorpio is a sign that tends to hold a lot of psychic ability. People are clairvoyants. I mean, we could go on and on, Lexi, about what this looks like and how it manifests for us. But it is likely that you could find a tarot reader who is a little bit psychic. And then that's where you might start to feel like, okay, can you read my future? Like, can you give me a little bit more deeper insight? Probably.
I feel like they're psychic too, because we can build and learn to have more psychic capacity. So like you're saying, I'm sure that now, since you've done more readings than you did a couple of years ago, you have more psychic ability with your clients. And like, same with me, right? I don't read tarot for clients, but I was just prepping for a session and I was sitting here thinking like, damn, I am so in tune with this client's energy that I'm about to see. We didn't even hop on the session yet. Right. But I could just like feel their energy going up into the session. And that has just only opened up in me once I released all the fear of that opening up in me, right? Once I released like these people that have these misconceptions about tarot, it's like, once you release the fear of what you've heard or whatever, you're going to start feeling truly connected to each card. Or it's like, if we will attract what we're afraid of, right? So they're like, I don't want to get that one card with the knife in its back. That's gonna freak me the fuck out. And then that you pull it for them. And it's like, well, because guess what? You're psychic. You did that. Right. So that brings me to my next question. What is your relationship, or tell us a little bit about your journey and your relationship with spirit or God or the universe or your highest self or whatever that looked like. Like, did you grow up in church? Just give us a little peek into that.
It's really complicated, which I think is most people's answer.
Yeah.
I grew up with essentially no religion. Neither of my parents were particularly religious, meaning we didn't go to church. We didn't say prayer at dinner. My mom is a 2-time breast cancer survivor. And this is where, for me, it starts to connect. Tank, there are no coincidences. Everything happens for a reason, including the bad things. Yeah. The first time my mom was sick, she really started to figure out who she was. And we're talking like somebody who's in their 40s now. You know, the journey never stops. We never stop getting curious, and we never stop growing and changing. Like, the person speaking to you now will be a totally different person, I hope, at least in another year even.
Yep.
And so she went down the path of Buddhism, actually. And so now how old are you when you're a freshman in high school? 14 years old. My mom is sick. She's going to ceremonies. She's meditating. She'll do entire weekends without speaking. I mean, she's practicing Buddhism, and I'm watching her go through one of the toughest things that a human will ever experience in their life. And she's shining. I mean, she is thriving. I've never seen my mom like that. And I remember thinking, like, oh my gosh, she's just a special person. Like, she's just a real one. And my parents actually decided to separate in the midst of my mom going through treatment, becoming Buddhist. There was lots of change happening in my life. So I moved in with my mom. My brother moved in with my dad. Then I go to school. My mom gets better. Amazing. Go to school. I'm kind of like dabbling in tarot. I'm starting to notice like little signs here and there. I'd be thinking about someone and they'd show up. Or I would be heading to class and I realized I forgot something, and then somebody would have an extra that they just happen to offer, you know, like little weird coincidences. Fast forward to my senior year of college. My parents get back together. It's my favorite love story.
Wow.
Again, there are no coincidences. They needed 7 years apart to figure their shit out. They came back together.
Wow.
I'm about to move to Seattle, Washington. My mom gets cancer again. And I'm like, okay, why is this happening for me, for us? It's not happening to us. It's happening for us. And it was the second time she got sick that I decided that there was a message for me. There was a message for my brother. There was a message for my dad. And when I moved to Seattle, I was alone. I didn't have any friends. I was starting my first full-time job, which, like, how weird is that? What a culture shock.
Yeah.
And so I started going to church. And I'm Greek Orthodox by birth. That's what I was christened. And I started going to church in Seattle, and I so appreciated the community and the willingness to accept a stranger and just sit down and have a coffee and a pastry, and there's no pressure. And I'm really moved by other people's faith. I was so moved by seeing how connected they felt to something bigger than themselves. And so as I started going to church more, my mom was getting better. We talked a little bit about her kind of journey with spirituality, and she doesn't necessarily consider herself Buddhist. She doesn't necessarily consider herself Greek Orthodox or Christian. She just believes that there's a higher power, there's a higher being. We're all connected by love. We're all connected by light. And that really resonated with me. And as I started, getting more interested in tarot, leaning into the signs a little bit more, I just developed my own spirituality practice. And for me, that looks like sometimes I go to church. Sometimes I actually go to church when there's not a service, and I like to sit in there and I like to just close my eyes. I'll journal. It feels like such a safe space with clean energy.
Yeah.
Like you can be anyone here. There's no pressure. We're just happy to have you. And I started meditating. I started surrounding myself with crystals, with incense. I started, getting interested in herbs and mindful movement. And now I think spirituality is very much a part of me. Like, I think we are all love. I think we're all God. I think we're all spirit. And regardless of what it looks like for other people, I hope that we're all just curious about our lives. We get curious about what's happening in our life, and we find something to connect to in this present moment, because there really is a message in everything. And if you're too afraid of what the message is and you're not giving yourself the space or the opportunity to discover it, you're not going to gain the wisdom or the insight or the confidence to make changes in your life, to learn who you are and level up.
I love that.
Yeah.
We did an episode a little while ago, kind of talking about our faith growing up and in the church. We called it Sunday Service episode. And my point of view is exactly that. I grew up in a Catholic church. So I had that side of me when I had left and moved out to college. My parents never forced it on us, but I went to a Catholic university. I stopped going to the Sunday services, but I would find time to sit in the church, because at first I was like, I just need a moment away from school and a quiet place to go. And that's what I knew. That turned into me sitting there with my eyes closed for an hour and thinking about other things. That turned into me finding meditation, finding a safe space for me to go and just let my brain decompress. I almost like to talk about my journey with spirituality as kind of window shopping and picking what I like the best from each thing and kind of putting it in my cart and then making it work for me. So another thing I absolutely love, and I'm so happy again that you kind of spoke on your journey with this as well, is taking what works for you and leaving the rest. We don't need to force anything on ourselves. We don't need to force a certain practice or a certain way. We're taking what works for us and going with that, and not judging the way other people's spirituality looks as well, which I think is really important. But now I'm curious, and I would absolutely love, because I would love to talk about how you just launched a business within tarot, and to show our listeners how absolutely incredible I know you are. I haven't gotten a reading yet, but I've seen what people are saying on Instagram. And just from our conversation today, I have like this level of full faith in a reading. So I would absolutely love if you could pull a card for Lexi and I, if that's good for you, and then potentially one for our community listening.
Let's do it. Let's do
Yay.
it.
Full transparency, I've never had my cards read ever. So here we go.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Wow. I'm honored. I'm just going to shuffle. Let's see you first, Kristin.
Yay.
Do you have any specific questions, or do you just want to see what comes up?
So I just want to see what comes up, because I have 1,000 questions that I could go through right now. So I don't want to take your time. We'll save that for a session between you and I. So let's just see what comes up.
Okay. What I love about reading tarot is that there's so many different methods of shuffling, of pulling cards. I really love to think about the person that I'm shuffling the cards for by saying their name over and over and over again and asking my spirit guides what the message is. And oftentimes I find that cards come flying out of the deck. So sometimes the message is just like, hi, hello, I'm here. Like, this is what you need to see in this moment. So I'm just waiting to see if anything falls out. And if it doesn't, top.
The universe is probably like, you have too much shit to figure out right now. So there's 100 messages coming up. Oh, what is this?
Pulled the death card. I pulled the death card.
I love that so much.
I love this because this is like the quote unquote scariest card in the deck outside of the devil. Like, totally. This is the card for everyone listening that they're probably like, I do not want to get this card. So I think my question to you is like, and you obviously don't have to answer, but to think about something right now in your life is not serving you. And it could be a thought pattern, a belief system. It could be a job. It could be a partner, an apartment, a city. There's something in your life that's either like meh or physically draining, or this isn't going the way that I thought it would. The death card is asking you to drop it, physically, like let it go. You know, I think we're really afraid to fail. the death card is saying that failure is so positive. It's allowing room for something else. Not everything has to work out. Not everything is going to work out. So what can you drop to make space for something new? I also love this for you, Kristin, because there's so much evolution in your future. Like even just from knowing you a little bit, I think the version of yourself sitting here now will be so different even 6 months from now. And you get there from going through this, whatever this looks like. And I think also like time and space and season, holidays are tough. We can feel really lonely. We can feel really drained. Like none of these are coincidences again, that it's season. Maybe there's been some like depressive episodes or lack of energy or feeling just down and overwhelmed. Like something needs to change. We're coming into a new year. It doesn't need to be a new you, but it could be just a different version of you. So let something go, sis.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you. And I appreciate that card. I talk about it every episode. Lex hears it from me all the time. I'm in such a transition period in my life. I'm in my later 20s, transitioning to my 30s. And this is the first year that I really feel like now I'm starting to let go of things, and I'm really self-aware about what's not serving me. And I'm learning now how to take the steps to let go of those things, because I've always been someone who's very attached to people, places, traditions around the holidays, especially, and things like that, that this is a year for me to step into shedding and learning to let go and finding power and moving on from things that I thought were supposed to be amazing and the best, and realizing that they were at a moment, but kind of stepping into new power. So that card is everything I needed to hear. And that was very spot on. I almost manifested it. I said, when you were shuffling, I was like, it's going to be some card that's going to make me do all the shit that I don't want to do. And have to. So I definitely manifested.
I was just doing a quick shuffle as you were chatting, and I was pulling a couple more cards because I think like messages evolve as people start to lean in and like open more. And I pulled the Star, which what a beautiful card. It's this woman and she's pouring water into the earth, and she's also pouring water into a lake. On the other side of death, on the other side of rebirth, is so much abundance that not only can you give to yourself, but you can actually give to others. And so it's feeling like it's something in the realm of your career life and your personal life are going to blend, like personal and professional passions become one, where there's harmony, there's synchronicity, and there's like true, just literal abundance. Also, you're a water sign. So the actual water, the emotions, like the happiness, I sense this for you.
No.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
I'm getting emotional.
It's
that was beautiful.
It has to get worse before it gets better.
100%.
I say that all the time in class at Rumble. I'm like, why do we do hard things? Like when it gets tough, why is the first instinct to quit? There's always a challenge on the other side of a challenge. So get through the challenge, grow tougher. We're strong. We can do this. And there's something else on the other side. Like you just got to go through it.
Wow. I appreciate you. Thank you for pulling those. That was so amazing.
Of course. Okay, Lexi. Just clearing energy in my deck.
I'm excited for this one, Lex. I have a really deep feeling about this.
Let's see.
Do you have a specific question?
No, let's just see what comes up.
I'm excited because I don't know you at all. And I prefer reading for people I don't know at all. Sometimes it feels like a pressure when you have like a friend or a relative where you just want them to have a great experience, but you also need to read the cards as they're meant to be read.
That brings me to a question I have that I'll ask after this, but it's like almost allowing the mind or letting the mind get in the way of like the opening that is the body and the intuition, because I believe the body is the intuition, right? And so it's like, I bet you work with people that you have to be like, okay, take a breath, kind of get out of the mind. And I bet as a reader, you had to learn how to not allow that first instinctual mental protector come in and get in the way of the message that is coming from the body.
This is interesting. Okay, I just pulled a bunch of cards. So the first card that I pulled is the Three of Cups, which again, cups, water, not a coincidence. There are no coincidences. This is a really lovely card. This is a card of harmony, celebration, joy, friendship. I think very on point with the season that we're in, the holiday season. It looks like you are nurturing your relationships, not on a necessarily like a one-on-one level, but building a community. It could be this community. It could be a different community in your life, but you are generally feeling happy. There's abundance, there's shared partnership, feeling like equal balance, give and take. People are open. It's emotional. It's like filling your cup. And in their celebration, but also the cards that come after it are interesting because there's the Ace of Cups, which is a new beginning. And so it's almost like by being with this community, by nurturing these friendships and relationships, by celebrating and living in the present moment and allowing yourself to feel joy, there are other opportunities that are coming for you that are creative also. This is a creative card. And so I wonder if it has something to do with this podcast or other areas of your life where you're really like nurturing something and you don't even know like what else is possible yet, but there's something on the other side.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Literally my intention for December is nurturing my community.
Look at that.
My online community, my in-person community. I'm hosting a lot of free offers this month because I feel like the whole year has been about, you gotta charge if you want your online business to make money. But I'm so grateful. And I was so overcome with the fact that people literally pay me to like be all up in their business. And I'm like, there's a lot of trust that comes with that. And I'm so grateful. So yeah, this month has been nourishment for my people and nurturing my community. And there is some big things coming next year that I don't really know what they're going to look like fully. So damn, girl, you fucking killed it.
I also, as you were talking, I was shuffling and I just pulled the Queen of Pentacles. And Pentacles, we didn't necessarily talk about this, but each of the suits relates to an element. So Pentacles are earth and finances. And so as you're talking about giving some of your services for free this month, it also is telling me that it's coming back to you tenfold in the form of monetary value because you are sharing yourself and people feel like they're connected and they trust you, that they will want to come back and eventually pay you. Queen of Pentacles is also just somebody that's so wise, empathetic, and open, like being open to having conversations, building community, doing things for free. She's holding this pentacle in one hand, but her other hand is open. Like there's still that give and take. So
cool.
I love that.
Thank you so much. That was so beautiful. Before we move on to the community, you're so great at, you just speak very grounded. Like I can tell you're speaking from your body. You're just very grounded. So when you work with clients, do you also like guide them and kind of coach them or facilitate their next steps as well? Or like, what does a session with you look like? Just so our listeners know what they could expect if they book you.
Yeah. So the first thing I'll say is it's all virtual. I don't actually do in-person readings and I don't actually do readings over Zoom. The way that I operate is you'll message me on Instagram and you'll say, hey, Alexis, I want to book a reading. I either have a really specific question, like I haven't talked to my brother in a year. There's been some shit going on with our family. Is he going to reach out? Is he willing to talk? Can you pull me a card? Or you'll say, hey, Alexis, like, I'm just feeling like I need some general guidance. I want to see what the cards have to say. I need your full name so I can use that to ask my spirit guides for direction. I'll film the reading and I'll send it to you. What I love about this method is there's no awkwardness of like, I'm kind of scared to do this. There's no time sensitivity, like how am I going to make time for this? And you get to have it to keep. Oftentimes I've had my cards read and I'm like, oh my God, that was life-changing. It was everything I needed to hear in this moment. And then 5
You're
minutes
like, what
later,
just happened?
yeah. Because you're like out of body experience. With that being said, because that's my method, I feel like it allows me to really just be in the cards. And I see the cards for who they are, and I hear the messages really clearly. And because I typically don't have any context, like a lot of people will message me out of the blue. I have no idea who they are. They're like, I don't have a question. I just want to see what happens. I am relying on your name and I'm relying on my intuition to tell me what you need to hear. And so what that looks like is, let's say I pull a 3-card spread. You're like, hey, I don't have a specific question. I just want to see what's going on. I pretty immediately can tell if it's related to love, if it's related to career, or if it's related to money. And depending on the cards that are pulled, depending on their positions, depending on how many of them there are, there may be some insight, meaning, so in this reading I just did for a client, I'm talking about her brother. I saw her brother and I saw her in the spread, and I saw him being willing to communicate. I saw him actually traveling, like physical movement. There's distance between them and he needs to travel in order for them to communicate clearly. Like doing it digitally was not going to work. They needed to have a face-to-face conversation. And so I'm like, okay, now I want to give you some insight because I see that he's open and willing and I want to know what you're going to do about it or how you should react. So I pulled a couple more cards because I asked my spirit guides for direction. It really just depends, like on the situation, on the spread. I always try to give folks a couple things to think about. Like, I'm never going to tell you what to do or what not to do, but I can tell you, like, this is what I'm seeing based on the cards that are here. Here's what I would recommend. Like, the Queen of Pentacles is wise and she's empathetic and she's open. So in the context of this situation with your brother, you should be open to receiving the message. You should be calm, cool, collected, and make sure he feels seen and heard. And that's how the conversation will move forward and you'll start to work on this together. Like that would be the advice.
Cool. So good. So good. Will you pull for the community?
Yes, I will. Okay. Wellness for the hot mess community. What is going on? What is happening in this moment in time? What is the message? It is December. We're headed into a new month, a new year. What an exciting time. See what's going on. Lots of cards are getting stuck as I'm shuffling.
Hot mess.
There's tension in the deck. There's tension in the deck.
Totally.
Okay. It's all tank, it's all tank. And here we go. 6 of Cups. Not a coincidence that every single one of these cards have been cups, which is water and emotions. Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. Hi, hello. We're all in these cards. The 6 of Cups is an interesting card because it has to do with a lot of nostalgia. So in this moment in time, the community is thinking about fond memories, thinking about fun time with family, maybe some traditions, just thinking about like good times. And what I like about that in this moment in time is when we're heading into a new year, it is a moment of reflection, right? It is a moment of looking back and saying, okay, what made me really happy this year? When did I feel like my best self? Who was I surrounded by? This card is also a warning not to get stuck in the past, not to let yourself do that thing, which, oh my gosh, Kristin, as a Pisces, I feel like you will understand this, where you just fantasize your past and you allow yourself to get swept up in the romance of like how you've made your life in these situations to be when your present moment is so different. So the cards are asking the community to reflect. What made you happy this year? Who were you surrounded with? how can you find more of that in your life? And also don't get swept up in that none of this will ever happen again. I can only be happy if I'm back with my ex or whatever this looks like, because your present moment is your present moment. You'll never get that back. And you also can't move forward if you're stuck in the past.
So be present, and don't text your ex.
Don't text your ex. But if you want to know if he's going to text you, I could probably tell you.
What an amazing note to end on right there. I was going to say, if you wanted to share a hot mess moment from the week, but honestly, like, I feel like you don't even have one, because this is just the energy I'm receiving right now.
Oh my gosh. I actually do have a hot mess moment. And I'm going to share it because my dating life is a shit show.
Oh yeah.
I pulled some cards for my dating life the other day, and the first one was the Tower. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna put these away. I went on a date on Friday, and I got full on catfished for the first time in my life. Full on catfished. So I show up to this bar. This man is like, hey, I'm here when you walk in. I'm looking around. I can't find this man. Somebody says my name. I turn around. I'm like, oh my God, spirit. I did not see the sign. I did not get the message that this was happening. Like, you did me dirty on this one. Right. And so I sit through 2 drinks with this man, mainly because I'm just like curious about people. So I'm hard hitting him with like, what's your soul's purpose? What lights yourself on fire? Like, do you think you're living your truth? He's like, whoa, what is going on?
You're like, you're not living your truth. Let me tell you. I know that.
And I leave this date and I'm so pissed off that I did my makeup. I went out of my comfort zone. Dating for me is really difficult. As somebody who feels misunderstood, I feel like I'm constantly just trying to explain myself to people who don't get it. And I ended up going to Balthazar alone, sitting at the bar. And what was like the beginning of a hot mess, literally getting catfish, crying as I'm walking to Balthazar, turned into making 3 friends at the bar, getting both the bartenders' numbers, and leaving feeling like my best self.
Love it. That's such a good hot mess moment. Wait, I love it. I think she's throwing something new at us. The hot mess can turn into something really rad and elevating.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because like, and everything happens for a reason, right? There's no coincidences that catfish made me walk into Balthazar alone. I've never done that in my life. And I've never gotten 2 dudes' numbers on the same time, and they're both there, which also I need to digest that later. But yeah, it was hot and messy.
So good.
I love it.
So good. Okay. I, for one, feel so comfortable and so trusting of you. And I was a little hesitant, actually, I won't lie, getting my cards read, especially on the podcast, because you never know. And especially if you don't feel good in someone else's energy. So for our listeners, if this is something that has lit you up, if this is something you're interested in learning more about, please reach out to Alexis. She just launched her own business, Mediterranean Magic. I'll let you tell us about that and where they can find you. But I can say from this experience, I felt so safe and I felt so connected to you, and I would feel so safe doing this again. And I think you are so perfect to come to for anybody who's new to tarot, who's experienced and wants to get their cards read. So where can our community find you? Where can they find you for your new business? And congratulations on your launch, because I know this is a special time.
Thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. And I genuinely feel seen, and that's a rare feeling for me. So thank you for holding space and taking me where I'm at in this moment in time. You can find me on Instagram at Mediterranean Magic with a CK, magic with a CK. Why? I love this. I love this topic. Magic. What is magic? You know, it's not like Harry Potter magic. Could it be? The K is the unknown. The K is like the little extra. The K, it's the CK. It's the CK for me. It's Mediterranean Magic on Instagram, and it's Mediterranean Magic on TikTok. And if you want to learn more about why it's called Mediterranean Magic, I dive into that on my page.
Yeah, we'll post all of that on the show notes. I was scrolling through your business page today, and again, you're really entertaining, and I loved a lot of your reels that made this work fun. And you know, again, this work doesn't have to be scary. exploring yourself doesn't have to be scary. It can be exciting, because it's like when you open the door and you see what's there, what the fuck is next? Whatever the fuck you want, right? But we have to acknowledge where we're at in the present moment. You hear that, community? Be present this month. Don't text your ex and book a session with Alexis.
Period. Thank you, Alexis, for taking some time tonight. This was such a pleasure, and we can't wait to have you back, hopefully sometime soon.
Thank you so much. I loved this.
Thank you.